one message actually to any parents that watch this program. Don't look for an excuse of why the kid did it. Look for a reason to be a reason why they don't. Talk to your child, monitor their online activity. They're going to go on social media, monitor it, talk to them, and actually educate yourself rather than, oh, I don't know, it's technology. Learn it. You've got a phone, you've got YouTube. Take some time. Do a course on mental health. It doesn't cost anything. Don't rely on a school. They're there to teach them lessons in education. Your job is to teach them lessons on getting to the next day.
Brilliant words, James.
Welcome to another spoiler review episode.
Welcome back to another spoiler review with our regular special guest, Emma, our personal therapist. We discuss what the nation is discussing this week, the new 4-part series on Netflix, Adolescence, starring Stephen Graham.
Welcome back to another spoiler review. This time we're not doing a movie, as you're aware from what you clicked on, but this is the new Netflix series that everyone at the moment is discussing, called Adolescence. If you haven't seen it, please go and watch it. It is, I think everyone agrees that this is probably one of the best pieces of TV that we have seen in years. No one said anything negative about it. And today we have our regular special guest. I keep calling her our therapist because she's a therapist to us. But we have Emma with us. How you doing?
Oh, thank you for having me on again. It's lovely to be here.
And tell the public where you're recording from.
I'm in Tunisia at the moment. I'm here for a couple of weeks, just working remotely. So yeah, but distance is no issue when you've got the internet. So
you just decided to go another continent to do some work. Fantastic. Wow. Well, I'll do just for the audience, I'm going to do a little bit of an intro, tell you who's in it, and then we're going to get into it. It's a 4-part series, really gritty, very realistic and devastating, and loads of other quirks to it. So this series has been written by the mighty Stephen Graham and his writing partner, Jack Thorne. He is known for writing screenplays such as Enola Holmes with Henry Cavill and Millie Bobby Brown, Toxic Town, which is a series recently on Netflix with Jodie Whittaker from Doctor Who, and Amy Lou Wood from Sex Education and White Lotus. Obviously, we've got, and also Robert Carlyle. It's about a 90s toxic waste affecting babies and growth issues. It's an incredible series as well. Recommend. He's also written for programs like the film Joy, which is a Netflix movie about the first test tube baby, which is a drama with Bill Nighy and Edward Norton and Thomasin McKenzie. He's also written for Dark Materials, Skins, and This Is England, which also stars Stephen Graham. And basically, if you've seen any social media recently, you'll see that Stephen Graham has been quite forthcoming with the concept and why he thought of this idea. He mentions that within weeks of each other, a couple of years back, he saw a news article about a young boy killing a young girl. And literally a couple of weeks later, the other end of the country, the same happened. So he realized it wasn't an isolated incident. Something's going on here. So that, it upset him, and he wanted to write something kind of highlighting it. Yeah, there's loads more I could do in an intro, but I better let other people speak. But yeah, episode 1 is The Arrest, and it's about basically a young boy being arrested for the suspected murder of a girl. Let's go to Emma first. Emma's watched it the most recently. She literally binged all 4 episodes yesterday.
Yeah, and usually I don't watch TV, so the fact that Kev was like, watch this, and I watched all 4 episodes in one sitting. It was that good of a show. And just the fact that it's all in one take, it's so different from anything else on TV. And just on the first episode, the first thing that kind of just really hit me was seeing the actual process start to finish of an arrest. It's like watching true crime or crime documentaries. You always you get an idea, but you don't actually see step by step how they get kind of what's the word introduced, processed.
Oh.
Just incredible.
Well, that even the bits that would be deemed boring enough for an actual movie to cut out and pick up the pace, those slow moments of being in the car with them traveling, that's what makes it more intense and more devastating, because you're like, God, this is dragging on. Imagine being a 13-year-old kid and being involved in that.
Yeah.
Can't look away either, which is really clever. They were saying with a one take, it's relentless in the sense that, and this is literally what Stephen Graham said himself, that when you see most TV series, it will cut away to a bit of nature, or it will come back to something, or it's an external shot of a house, and you get a little bit of a moment. But it's like once the train goes, you're on it and you can't get off until it's the end of that episode.
Yeah,
so it's intense, man.
And James has got a unique perspective compared to all of us, because James has a young lad. He's 6 years old, so not quite the age of these characters, but a lot of people are saying it's very scary from a parent's point of view. Like, what's your take on it in general, James?
Yeah, the first episode, unfortunately, I had my bubble burst a bit on the first episode, because when I watched it, I was questioning that, like, would you be able to do that to a minor without taking an adult and all this stuff, and questioning without a parent. And then my mate, who's actually a police officer, said he refused to watch it after seeing the first 20 minutes because it was so ridiculous and unrealistic, which is annoying. I'm trying to get him to rewatch it. But I guess you have to dramatize some stuff for effects, don't you? Like, you have to do that. Little nuances, though, like little Easter eggs, like when they're arresting him, if you freeze the frame, his hand's like that, and there's a ripped bit of paper on the wall shaped like the blade of a knife.
Oh yeah, I saw that at the very end when the teddy bear's on the bed. You can see that rip in the
Yeah. So little things like they've poked. Whether it must be deliberate, 'cause you wouldn't just have that rip in your set, would you?
Wow.
Also, another little Easter egg, when there's a couple of songs where there's a girl singing. And it's the girl who was murdered, the actress singing. And a couple of other bits are in there as well, which I'll probably remember as we talk. But yeah, it was. I mean, what would you do if that was you, sort of thing? I mean, it's funny because you watch the first episode and think, "Oh, that was really extreme," but then you realise that it was never a whodunit. The program, it's never a whodunit. It was a why did it happen?
Yeah,
and you don't realise that till you kind of get out of episode 1 feeling like almost, what's going on here? Then episode 2, you're like, okay, well now we know what's happened. It's blatant, unless you're kind of almost hoping for a twist, but it's almost good that there wasn't one. And then you realise at the end it wasn't a whodunit. It was just like.
Well, that was the devastating bit when you're like, do we believe him? We don't really, but we're hopeful. We're actually hoping that he didn't do it. Then you see that footage. It's so brutal and just matter of fact. It wasn't built up. It was like, there you go. And Stephen Graham's reaction to that, that if it doesn't get you, that's something wrong with you. That was tough to watch.
Yeah, my feelings about it. Episode 1, I was like in shock, like Diddy. Then I was like, at the end of it, yeah. Episode 2, like, is there something coming around? They're doing all the backgrounds and everything, and in episode 3, you're like, yes, put him in prison forever. Absolutely. And number 4, you're like, well, where do they go from here, kind of thing? It's kind of left.
Well, that's it. When they were at the school, I thought maybe another kid actually did it, and he was covering for him, and he was wearing his jacket.
That's what I
or
thought.
I was like, it can't be him. It can't be him. I was trying to think of other ways.
Well,
but I mean, how?
Sorry. No, sorry. I was going to say what was clever with the CCTV footage was at one point I thought he might have just hit her. Like, not that's any better than stabbing, but the idea that when they see that it's 7 times, and then you think, oh, well, that could look like he has done it because it's the same amount of times that she was stabbed. But then
I think one thing that a couple of people have done that's quite handy, actually, because when you watch it on telly, that TV screen's, that laptop's quite small, isn't it? You kind of just see a figure. What some people have done is enhanced it. So it's like your whole screen nearly, and you're almost watching it, and it color coded it, corrected it, so you can it's blatantly just like you see everything. You can even see the detail on his t-shirt or jumper or whatever that he's wearing. So they've like upped
Yeah.
it and scaled it, and then you look at that and you're like, oh, okay.
Sorry to interrupt the show. Just a reminder to say we love and appreciate you all for listening to the podcast, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, or Amazon. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, follow, as this really helps us continue to progress and improve the content and keeps us making these fun episodes for you guys. Oh, we're also on these things called Instagram and TikTok. You can follow us there too, as we share short, funny reels on the reg that you can share with friends if you like. Now, back to the mayhem.
Yeah.
It really struck me as well when you know when the dad asks, he says to the kid, "I'm going to ask you one time only. Did you do it?" And you can see the kid, and I think it's really relatable seeing kids at school or whatever that they just lie. Like there's just no kind of conscience, I guess, as adults would to just come straight up. But it's just, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong, and it's really, I don't know.
Most
It's a
adults are
really
like that as well, to be fair. It's human nature, isn't it, to try and you back yourself into a corner. It's fight or flight. So it's like,
But and as well, look, mention like in that first episode, one of the worst bits was when he gets strip searched, and obviously he's got to have an appropriate adult or his parent there. And as we learn later on through the program, when he's asked, "Who do you want to be with you?" he's like, "My dad, my dad." I think most people would ask for their mum. I think in general, irrelevant of
boys,
relationship.
not all the time.
No, I'm not saying all the time. I'm just saying relationship. But the program has deliberately chosen a dad because he's going down a men
Masculine.
route. That's the point of the program. Don't argue. That's the point of the program. That's literally what they've told us.
I thought the point of that was to eliminate the whole absent father, crappy dad. That's why he was like blah blah blah.
No, his dad was present. He just had
No, but if he hadn't been, if he'd have gone, my mum, they might have been like, why didn't he pick his dad? Oh, he's probably never there. Yeah. He's done this, done that.
Again, that's the narrative they're deliberately trying to choose. Whether you like the fact or not is irrelevant. That is the point of that process. Because even when he's talking to his dad later on, and it's on the speaker, he's like, "I don't know, my mum's there. I wanted to speak to you," type thing.
Yeah, well, actually, to go off what James is saying, actually, Stephen Graham in an interview said that I didn't want it to look like blaming the parents. He said it takes a whole village to raise a kid. And he was talking about that it's every aspect. He says the government are just as responsible, the school are just responsible, teachers are responsible, children, your environment, like it's a whole kind of collective. And he didn't want to palm it off on bad parenting and an abusive father or sexually abusive or any of those kind of things that are kind of the norm tropes in these kind of shows. And I think that's what makes it really poignant and scary, the fact that the kid Jamie is left on his own. But the idea that we leave our children alone with these devices and we don't know what they bear witness to, and the idea that it is almost like brainwashing or mind control in some messed up way, that children are doing some crazy things that wouldn't have happened many years ago if it wasn't for this kind of technology.
It's always happened through time. It's just that we weren't as aware of it, and it wasn't beeping in our pockets all the time. We had to go and buy a newspaper.
When I did kickboxing, I stopped doing it like a year or so ago. There was a girl there who was like 15 or 16, and I spoke to her about growing up today. And she was like an athlete, and she was tough as hell, and she properly punched me square in the face multiple times, like proper hurt me a couple of times. Whoa. And I didn't want to hit hard back at all. But the point is that I spoke to her and said, no one messes with you at school, I'm sure, because here you are beating up a 40-year-old. And she's like, no, school's brutal. I'm like, no, it can't be. From my generation, when we got bullied. And she's like, no, I get harassed all the time because of this and that. And, and it's on my Instagram, it's on my Facebook and stuff like that. And, you find your clan and you stick to that, like what we did, everyone does. But I assumed that kids were better. And she was like, nah, kids are horrible.
Yeah.
I didn't.
They're
expect
horrible because
that.
it's easy to be horrible now. Like, it took balls to go up to someone in the face and say, "Oh, nat, 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 nat," whatever. But now you can be a little keyboard warrior behind that, and
But not only that, your worst moments can be recorded and spread across the school.
yeah, that's the one
Yeah.
thing we didn't have to worry about.
Exactly. So say you tripped up and like, you know, your underwear shows or like, I don't know, other kind of silly things that might happen. They can then use that footage and then just share it with
Yeah.
everyone. And then you become a
Mm.
laughing stock, but on a kind of like spread across the entire school.
It's kind
Emma,
of a double-edged sword, that one, though, because that is, yes, it's bad, but it's also led to a lot of people getting caught doing stuff. So it's kind of like a yin and yang on that one.
so Emma, you're a bit younger than us. Because this isn't relatable to us really, because we didn't have. I mean, we had violence, but we didn't have
The internet.
that reason and that build up to have that violence. Like, what was it like
Mhm.
at school for you when you were with social media at school?
Yeah, I guess Instagram started becoming a thing when I was about maybe 13, 14, so kind of middle of school. And there was certainly, I think social media is a harder, in a way, form of bullying because there's no escaping it. It's like you can shut off, you can come off the apps, but you know loads of people are talking about you behind the scenes, even if you're not on it. And also, you go home and it doesn't end. It just never ends. It's like an all-encompassing thing. My younger sibling is still in school. They're in sixth form now, but I have kind of an insight into high school nowadays as well. And I think high school bullying only changes form, but it can never get easier. It's some weird hormonal and just like crazy time of life, quite animalistic in a way. You know, you imagine like monkeys in a tree and they just want to find out who comes out on top. But yeah, it's brutal, and I think the show in episode 2, when it's talking about the secret language of emojis and of communication, it's just so hard to. And I think
I've
what
never heard
stands
of any
out
of
from
those
watching
phrases.
this, is like as
I love
parents,
that.
If you
youth.
if you think, no, Kev, when we grew up, it was sticks and stones, and it was a lot more like physical, pushy, shovey. Whereas now it's very much like people use words
But
way more
that was so
because it's harder to
interesting.
get caught.
I like that the kid who doesn't really get on with his dad, who is the cop, he's
Yeah.
like, "Dad, come here. You're embarrassing me. You're asking all the wrong questions because that emoji means this and that means that, and they're all incels." And he's like, "What's that?" He's like, "Oh, Dad, Jesus!" And he has to educate him on being a youth for him to go, "Oh, oh." And all these adults are investigating, and none of them know what they're doing because they don't know that language. They just assume that emoji means literally what an emoji means, but it doesn't. It's, you know,
Which actually makes it a bit creepier in a weird way, because then it almost has like a kind of cult, weird, like almost satanic element, because it's like of another world. Do you know what I mean? It's like an underworld that adults aren't privy to.
I mean,
It's-
only to us
Yeah.
because of that, but for them, it's just day to day, isn't it?
Well, yeah. But for anyone else trying to look into it, it's like you're saying, it's like trying to break a code.
It's like things have changed so much. It's like he says he sends a heart to his wife. He goes, "What color?" I'm like, "What do you mean? What color? What?" I send black hearts just because I think I've met one. I think a black heart's cooler. So when I do say I love something, I put a little black heart. I don't know what that means. They didn't say black heart in the program, but he's like, purple means horny, yellow means whatever, and I'm like, never understood that. But when we were younger, I was speaking to someone today. I got my first mobile phone, Nokia 3310, when in like year 2000, I think. 2001 maybe. I was in second year of college, and I was pressured to do it because everyone else started getting one, and I thought it was a fad. Didn't think it was going to catch on because it was literally for phoning. It took half an hour to send a text. I just thought it was really, really, really. Oh, I lost my train of thought there. What was I saying?
Talking about getting a phone.
Emojis.
We're talking about emojis and that, and then phones, and then underground code words.
Or do you mean about
Then
slang?
you talked about colours of hearts.
Do you mean like text message slang?
Then you were talking about sending a black heart.
That was it. Yeah. So back then it was normal to send to your friends an X or an XX at the end of messages,
Yeah.
just friends, male or female. Now, if I did that to Emma and I messaged her and it's something random, she'd be like, it's a bit creepy. Like, it's not
don't
something you
know.
do unless you're like
Yeah.
really,
Hmm.
unless that's your normal language. Like if Emma did it to me all the time, maybe I'd do it back. I don't know, but it's not something you do anymore. You don't do X's anymore.
Do you know what's
I do.
crazy though? Just to jump off that real quick, because now, because obviously you can send emails with your phone, people are writing emails like text messages now, and that's where things are
I
going a
do
bit
that a
crazy.
bit.
Sending
I
these
send X's to my
statuses.
clients on emails.
There you go. That's what I mean. Or like you accidentally send it to your landlord. Oh no, I didn't mean. Oh, it's like it's
I
kind of
do
like
think women might be able to get away with that a bit more than
yeah.
men. Men,
Yeah.
it looks predatory unless you really know them really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna. I didn't want to speak too much at the beginning because I've got a few notes, but I was just going to give a brief synopsis of the actors. Well, not a synopsis, but just a breakdown of the actors because I haven't mentioned any of the actors yet. And then we'll have a poem from Drew on the first episode, and then we'll go into a bit more detail on the next bit. So, just wanted to remind everyone that normally, I don't know how much you know about Stephen Graham, but he's got quite bad dyslexia, and his wife Hannah Walters, who is actually in the program, she normally reads all these scripts and
Did not
tells
know
him
that.
which programs to go for or what to avoid. But obviously, he was inspired to write this, and she's in quite a lot of programs with him. Like she was in This Is England with him. She's in A Thousand Blows, the new one on Netflix, Disney with him. But she's in this. She plays Mrs. Bailey. She's the teacher in the second episode that takes the girl aside to check if she's all right, the best friend of the girl who died.
Did not know that was his wife.
Yeah, she's in lots, but she's in This Is England, Boiling Point, Pirates of the Caribbean, Thousand Blows.
Yeah,
So
she's great.
she's in a lot. But also this program, apart from Stephen Graham, stars Ashley Walters, who is D.I.
Excellent.
Bascom.
Would have been a great James Bond.
He's cool as I love the fact that he's such a big build of a man, but he's softly spoken. He's reasonable and he listens. You know, it's not what you would expect. And I think he's going against type because he's normally playing quite
Rude Boys.
people. Well, he's in Top Boy, Bullet Boy. Also, he's in A Thousand Blows with Stephen Graham, and so is the psychologist. She's in A Thousand Blows. She's the main character in Stephen Graham's program. So they're all kind of connected. Faye Marseille, she plays DS Misha Frank,
She's brilliant.
and she's in Game of Thrones, Andor, Black Mirror, loads of stuff. And Erin Doherty, she is Bryony Ariston, the psychologist from The Crown. As I said, they both star in A Thousand Blows on Disney Plus by the Peaky Blinders crew. And it's directed by Philip Barantini. He directed Boiling Point, The Responder with Martin Freeman, and Time with Sean Bean. So there's a lot in there, and obviously the main kid, Owen Cooper, played by Jamie Miller. Oh, sorry, the character's Jamie Miller. As we were speaking before, he's not a professional actor. He has done some drama lessons as a hobby, but I think he's like 15 or 16. And this is his first role. And now, since doing that, he's now acting with Margot Robbie in Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
He's in the middle of filming a major blockbuster film, which is just mad.
Jumping off that as well, his episode number 3 was the first one they filmed as well. So the pressure was really on as well because that's the first episode they originally filmed.
Yeah, and we'll go into more detail on that in a second. But we're going to have a poem from Drew on the first episode, and then we'll go on to the next bit.
Yeah, I mean, this show touched me so much, and as people that listen to Rage well know that I'm a poet, but I just felt really kind of this show spoke to me on such a kind of deeper level that I wanted to write poetry, and for some reason it felt wrong if it wasn't about each episode because each one has its own narrative and story. And you guys in this episode can let me know what you think about how kind of accurate this is. So I've called it Empty Room. Wood breaks as thoughts escape. A police raid. Murder, they say. My boy taken. After we're all awakened, possible prison sentence leaves me speechless. Silence. The back of a police van, banging windows. It's okay, son. Murder. What's going on? Getting read his rights, barely even daylight. Fingerprints taken, clothes removed, cornflakes remain in a box. He chose me as his responsible adult. How? When something like this happens on my watch? How did I miss it? Interview rooms. Our solicitor tells us what to do. We enter a tennis match of emotions across a table with one another. A photo of the victim. Her poor mother. No comment. No comment. How do you know her? That brutal act where my son took a life, stabbed 7 times with a knife. An innocent girl. Why? A monster caught on CCTV. Blood tarnishes the hands of my boy who's guilty. My son. What have you done? This is a nightmare I can't wake up from. I'm here sobered by his violent mistake. A weight so heavy my whole world breaks. I'm not sleeping, my eyes aren't behind skin. This shocking event is really happening.
Beautiful, man.
Wow.
That episode was, like you said, your poem is mainly from Stephen Graham's point of view, I'm guessing. So
Yeah.
That's the bit that hit hard. Like his emotion, his range is for like a tough guy is like incredible.
But also they were saying the idea of like cornflakes is really powerful because it creates an innocence to Jamie. He's saying, don't forget to have your cornflakes, and everyone's treating him because obviously he is an adolescent. But it's the idea that as you're older, you potentially do violent things in the world, and he's an innocent kid that has done very brutal things. So,
and we forgot to mention the actor Mark Stanley, who I've met and worked with once, but Drew's a friend of. He is the solicitor for the kid. Drew knows the guy.
Well, I mean,
fairly well.
My writing partner David knows him really well. I just got to meet him a couple of times, but he was in a short film that we wrote called Promenade.
Yeah, he's really good.
A quick message from Rage Whale. We are trying to make the viewing and listening experience much better for you guys, a much more coherent and sober experience. And because of that, we're going to be ditching the rums, the beers, the fizzy drinks, and we're going to be focusing more on healthier drinks. You know, such as your Huel, Trip, Kombucha by Remedy, Good Rays with CBD, Liquid Death, and Gillian Anderson's G-Spot, to name but a few. We're just trying to promote a healthier lifestyle alternative that helps make our episodes much better for you guys.
So yeah, going on to the second episode at the school, what was your kind of takeaway from that, Emma?
Yeah, I think it was.
Sorry, big question, isn't it?
It's like where to start. I think having the
what
police
stuck with you the
officers,
most?
just the high school environment, the chaotic nature of the school and the dynamic between kids, like the lack of respect in general between just human beings, just because of the context, really stood out. And I also like the Katie's best friend who was experiencing so much anger, and she was lashing out at the policeman. She then gets in a fight with the other kid who was involved. Just seeing all that anger just showed how differently people deal with grief, and how grief is just such not a straightforward thing to process, especially at such a young age. And I think I was also feeling into how each of these kids would take something like this on for the rest of their life. Like, it's not just something that happens and then they move past. Like, I can imagine them all, like, in adulthood still stinging from something like that happening, and just the width of the impact of something like that happening. What about you guys? What stood out?
Well, the bit you mentioned, like the little kids being cheeky little shits, like when it's really inappropriate to be that. But you know those kids exist. They're in my classroom, wouldn't take anything seriously. absolute dickheads, but they're just playing it for laughs, and because they don't know how to be they're too young to be emotionally stable about it.
Well, I thought as well, teachers fighting that kind of war on phones, because you can see in every classroom, there's people on the phones like, phones off now. Is like you keep hearing that echoed throughout the whole thing. And you just see, and they said it was really clever the way they shot it. They wanted this sea of phones as well. If you look closely in the background, everyone is pretty much constantly just doom scrolling in pretty much every scene.
I think that episode was put there to give more insight into him, on the basis that it painted a very clear picture that it's a bit of a rough area. There's a lot of disrespectful children, but also a lot of teachers that one teacher made a point of saying they're beyond help or he's given up. That supply teacher. Teachers have given up. There was the point where they walked past these two boys getting told off by another teacher. There was the lady who's Stephen Graham's wife, who was very like softly, probably would just let him get away with stuff from the sound of it. And that matey boy shows up late, doesn't care, and they're all like mouthy, gobby, so violent. Example, that girl, like violence.
And
Also,
the
it
kid
gives you.
intimidating the son at lunch, wasn't he, to give him £1.20 or something?
Well, I think it paints a better picture as well of the victim, because she was a piece of work. She wasn't like a nice girl.
No, none of
Because
them
look
are.
at her best friend. Having her best friend there, I think, painted a really good picture of her, because friends are alike. And that girl was, yeah, she was angry, but she was also very violent. The way she attacked that kid, she was rude, arrogant, obnoxious. At that age, her best friend isn't going to be like, "Oh, I'm the nicest girl in the world." She's going to be horrible as well. Like,
But
bullies don't hang out with really nice people.
I would add that having a girl go through grief is not normal behavior. Like, I don't imagine that that girl acts like that all the time. Her best friend has just been killed. So I get what you're saying, but I didn't take that when I watched it. I just thought, actually, she says to the teacher, Katie was the only one who understood me, who saw me, and now she's had her safety, stability taken, and now she's like, well, screw everyone, and she's lashing out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Maybe she was a violent person and a piece of work, this girl, and then she met Katie and maybe, maybe took the violent side away from her, and then she's just gone back to being what she was before. Because it wasn't like a punch or a slap; it was like stamping on him and stuff. Like that's like not someone that haven't got past the violence. That's not like a newcomer. That's that's a seasoned vet right there. But I think it made a good thing of showing it's clearly a bit of a crappy area. And teachers couldn't care less. The school problem is the phone problem's the dumbest thing in the world, because Isla goes to school. She's 13, and when they go to school, they have to put their phone in this little pouch, like you get at concerts, and it gets like tagged, and they can't open it until the end of the day. It goes through like a metal thing, and they can open it, so they can't have phones between 9 and 3.
I doubt every school has that though. But
They haven't, but they could.
They could, but they
Wouldn't
definitely
cost a lot.
no. I mean, I think from that to go away from the themes for a second, the biggest thing about that episode, that's the one that's brought up. What's the word? Queries. A lot of people online, they're going, was it really one shot? Because there's loads of shots in episode 2 that seem impossible, like going through the window and flying over. But there's been tons of stuff online showing the behind the scenes that the crew were disguised as kids or teachers or background characters. So when that kid escapes through the window, there's no pane of glass in the other window or something, and it gets passed through to the next person, who then runs and puts it on a buggy, which zooms up the hill when he's being chased. So that's why it goes so quick.
And they're carrying the drone, aren't they, all through the shot? The massive drone. There's like 3 of them carrying it.
Yeah, at the top they get. That's why the girl, the best friend, when they get to the top and they're talking about, the cop and the son are talking about the chippy and going in the car. It cuts to that girl who's walking, and clearly she's been told to delay so they can hook this thing onto the drone, and she turns and just looks at the school, and you look at her face for like 30 seconds, and then it flies off. You're like, that's them connecting, hooking it up, and goes down to
Did you
Stephen
see
Graham.
the behind the scenes of Stephen Graham driving on the roof of the van? they had a version of his van that had like a cage with a seat on it and a steering wheel. So they were driving the van, so people could be in the van. Because obviously, actors aren't driving, are they? So they could have people in the van and someone on the roof driving it.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
didn't see
They do
that.
that in most Hollywood
That's,
things. So
yeah, that's common for cars.
look,
Yeah.
it's safer.
Yeah, they had Stephen Graham taking it for a spin on the last day,
Nice, nice.
or rap day, whatever.
I was going to say, jumping back though, that girl that plays the best friend, her performance is amazing. Because if you think you've got 1 hour, once they roll the camera, it's kind of like a game of kind of like they're passing the baton, and then that episode doesn't finish till the camera gets to the last person, right? That the journey and the arc of that particular character is amazing, because you think when she is in that classroom and hits mobility and starts crying around the teacher, and you wonder how many times she's had to do that, because they only get 10 takes for each day of that one episode.
No, they did two records a day. They did a morning record and an afternoon record, and they did it 5 days a week. So they did a week an episode. So it was 10 takes for the week. Two a day.
But even still, the fact that that's why I was blown away. I was blown away with obviously, the kind of synchronicity of the crew and all the behind the scenes to create that magic. But I was looking at performances and arcs and how well, kind of for continuity, how well the actor knows exactly what frame of mind to be in for each point, but also hit those moments.
And they're kids, and to be emotional and be responsive. And to understand they've hit their mark, and that cameraman hasn't caught up this time. Shit, I better delay something. I better have an emotion, a thought, a think, rather than just going, what's going on?
All the kids in it were great. Even the kid that gets caught running away, they're all brilliant.
He was fantastic. I want to go into the third episode because I think that one's the next two are like big ones for me personally, unless anyone's got anything significant they want to say about the school episode.
I was going to say 2 quick things about the school episode, which I thought was really powerful, was the way that the 2 police officers, that you think about how police officers are in the world, so to speak, and they talk about the problem with the school system. They crack a joke and say, is it me, or does this feel more like a prison? Which I thought was really powerful. And then she says,
smells.
And she says how it smells of cabbage and, whatever, just horrendous kind of things. And it's really interesting. I thought that you get the idea there's an animalistic element, right? And that they are all just cooped up, like almost like battery hens. They're all just trapped in these rooms. And what are they really learning? Because all they want to do is escape. They just want to get out and get on with any distraction. I didn't see anyone really settled that wanted to learn. No one was willing to turn up to kind of learn something. They were all trying to get out or escape somehow with technology.
It all stems from the teachers again, though, doesn't it? They give up because of a few, and then the mass lose out and then have no option but to give up.
Yeah, you need a good teacher to engage you.
I had very charismatic and amazing teachers when I was growing up, and they gave a lot of time and really kind of inspired me and really felt like they cared about my career.
I get that. I think on this occasion, I think they were trying to make it like the kind of kids out where it's like a dead end. But the kids are a pain in the arse.
It's hard enough to wrangle a podcast with 3 people on it or 4 people on it. Never mind your 30
true though
deliberate dickheads.
But I hate to say it, but do you think these really arrogant, rude, like horrible kids go home and they're like the nicest son or daughter in the world? No, probably not. They're probably not getting a lot of support. I think what needs to happen in schools that aren't banning mobile phones and encouraging children to actually communicate is there's just has to be more communication between school and home.
And
which is hard.
There's an issue with focus. People I have a short attention span sometimes, and I get really frustrated with that, how many times I look at my phone. I mean, I am running stuff from it to do things. I'm not just fanning about all the time, but I do look at it far too much. And Drew looks at it far too little, because every time I send him an important message, I have to phone him because he never reads anything.
Well, I will say, I know you go.
No, I was just going to say, well, I was a TA, so I felt like I was getting a slight kind of PTSD watching that, because it reminded me back when I do like TA jobs. And I remember one of the places in, I think it was Hackney or somewhere in London, where we had to go through metal detectors. And I remember saying to Sarah at the time, like, I might not stay at this school for a week because I might not be here still. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was frightening going through metal detectors like it was an airport. And this is for children. So you can imagine how intimidating and the kind of energy that creates in the morning. Like, put your lunch
another
bag.
elevation, that is, isn't it?
I mean, put your lunch bag and your lunch box to one side, going through metal detectors. I mean, it really does kind of, I mean, obviously, yeah, it's a huge safety thing because at least hopefully it's preventing knife crime. But it's also quite frightening, the idea that certain schools need those precautions. So,
Yeah.
I will say one thing though. It stems, a lot of this stems from primary school, not secondary school, and the reason being, we're unfortunately in a world where bullies are rewarded and victims are punished in school, and that is 100% a fact. I know
Rewarded for not hitting
firsthand.
someone.
No, they're rewarded for being bullies, like literally. As in, two examples I know of firsthand is one. I won't say the score. The kid, obviously, bully. Gets, reprimanded, then gets put on a chart where if they're good for X amount of days, they like get a reward. What? And then there's another thing. This happens multiple occasions. Primary schools encourage people not to talk up or grass up bullies. They actively do that without saying it, because Isla got bullied at school, told the teacher, so they moved her away from her friends. And one of my friends, a work kid, is getting bullied. So what they've done is they've moved him out of the equation and put him in a different class away from his friends. And the bullies just stayed there because they don't want to upset him. They're too soft on bullies.
I hear that a lot, actually. I've heard that
Happens.
many
It really
times.
it does happen. It's horrible to think. But then what does that tell you next time you get bullied again? Just don't say anything because
Yeah.
you're going to get moved.
the other thing off that, what I think is fascinating, what you're saying there, is the names I remembered the most were the misbehaved children, and the kids that were absolute gold. No one knew their names.
It's
And
the
I
same
even
for
told teachers, if you're a reprobate, you're known and your name is on a list, and they always know you. But if you're really good at what you do and you're well behaved, nobody knows you're invisible.
Well, we know names of serial killers, but we don't know names of victims. Anyway, we need to stop on this one. Drew, second poem, and then we'll move on.
This one's called Knife Edge. Hide and seek. Ironic as we're at a school where this game has been played many times, but we're looking for a murder weapon, a knife used in a violent crime. Classes of chaotic children distracted by their screens, memes, emojis from an underworld and what they really mean. A deeper level to colourful stickers, but we don't see the bigger picture. Screens training minds to misbehave while we pick up the pieces. Kids beat each other black and blue in the playground. Fear makes them run now. The murder weapon is found. A frightened father looks down at so many flowers that now cover the ground. A murder scene where an innocent teen exploded in a fit of rage and stained families and memories and future days. Future moments for two families have now been erased.
Lovely, man. I like a little pause afterwards. It's nice.
So good.
So the next one. Episode 3, the interview with the psychologist, and I think this one, we're going into the main themes here because obviously social media we've brought up, bullying.
This one's where we're getting into the thick of it, I think, because the last one I don't have a great deal to say about the last one, really.
So this one we bring up things like, they're buzzwords, but toxic masculinity. You get the male.
Oh, that was kind of touched on at the school, wasn't it? Forgot to mention that.
Male rage, lack of respect for women, picking up on male role models around you, even if you're picking up on the wrong signals. Like Stephen Graham's a good dad, but all the kid remembers is when he had a fit and tore down a shed and had a weak moment of short temper. And I'm, I guess, ashamed to say, but it's not. If you know me, you know me. I have a very short temper myself. I'm pretty mild-mannered, but I do snap and I go a bit over the top sometimes.
And you've got a lot of good qualities, though.
But that's I hate to say normal, but it is normal. But I like this episode because it was not the toughest one. I think the last one was the toughest one, but
this was the most interesting.
Yeah, and the fact that he talks to the woman who is obviously a lovely person who's trying to help him on his side, kind of, and he throws a fit a couple of times and talks down to her, and the bit, I'm sure everyone's read this by now, he yawns. That's because it was like he'd been doing it for a little while, and she goes, "Am I boring you?" And he laughs. None of that was planned. He just yawned. He didn't think the camera was going to catch him, and they just bounced off that. And I think it was brilliant. Yeah, because when he banged the window at the end, they did that different times, and that was the time he went a bit harder on the window as well. So it really
And each one as well, because
it kind of jolts you. But he did incredibly well there. But it's highlighting that, like we said before, the male rage and the disrespect towards women, because as soon as the man walks in the room, he's good as gold. He corrects himself, like he does. And again, it's not one of those things that, oh, kids have a disrespect for women. This storyline is trying to highlight the effects that the social media, everything else has, and it means that, you know, he goes and she talks to him about, what do you think of girls? Do you think she fancied you or whatever? And he's like, no, I'm ugly. You know, and he's clearly not an ugly kid. He's a normal kid. He just has the confidence, and he thinks he's ugly. And it's, again, is it body dysmorphia as well? Is it looking at all these buff 6-pack men on social media, the stuff that women's had to deal with since the beginning of time? Men are now are feeling that effect more today than we ever have. Like when I was a kid, I didn't care if I was skinny or fat. I didn't give a shit. Now it's different and probably worse for kids, and obviously they don't have the mental capacity to compute everything that's been said, so they just, like what I did when I was younger, if I couldn't win an argument, I'd win the argument, you know, with a bit of rage and get my point over. But yeah, what was your guys' James? You were going to say something, sorry, man.
Yeah, this is where I flipped, and I think this is where I take a take that most people don't actually, and where I sort of saw the episode 1 having more of a purpose, because I watch loads. I spend most of my time watching like human behavior things, interviews with serial killers, sociopaths, psychopaths, billionaires, scientists, all this sort of stuff. I love it, and I just thought he showed his true colours. He was a psychopath. He did absolute psychopathic traits. And I did go along with the notion that he hates women until the bit at the end when it was so important to him that he liked her. And he was so interested, because if he was like, don't care what you think, if you were genuinely hated women, like whoever, you'd be like, fuck what you say.
Don't you think that's because he's been rejected by women because he thinks he's ugly? He wanted someone to like him.
No, well, that isn't what someone with toxic masculinity would do. They would have disregard for women and see them as subpar.
Maybe, yeah, but I think
they wouldn't seek their approval. You wouldn't seek approval of someone you're above.
When you're talking about psychopath as well, I agree with you, because I think he's still saying he's innocent all the way through that until he messes up once.
The reason why I think I said psychopath, and this is when I stumbled across some, like, they said they're psychiatrists. I don't know, you know, they might not be true. I don't know. But they were saying the same sort of thing. I was thinking that if you look at it as a whole, as a movie, he was very manipulative, very like, oh yeah, showed zero remorse or empathy through the whole thing. No tears, really, no nothing, just anger. Didn't show any, when he was getting asked questions, showing that stabbing video, there was nothing there. And then that woman, yes, she happened to be a woman, and I think, yeah, they did play the fact he has a problem with women, but he snapped when she wasn't allowing herself to be manipulated by him and started telling him what to do.
Yeah, she couldn't win, could she? So he was frustrated, yeah.
Yeah, he was frustrated, and then he snapped, and then he kind of like snapped back into it. And even little things like to try and like get one over, like he said he didn't like pickles, and then ate a sandwich later on.
Yeah.
When was it pickles or something in the sandwich?
Yeah, she's a pickle, wasn't it?
He's like, don't like it. Like, no, to like undermine her character.
And then she's going away. She's like, I'll eat it.
And I think, and even, that guy comes in, he's back to like, he kind of almost flips. Like when you see people, well, not people, but you see it a lot in TV and documentaries where people do snap, and he had no empathy. No, even at the end, he was trying to play it off like he didn't do anything bad. He's like, I didn't touch her. Most people would have touched her. I didn't touch her. Right? So I didn't touch her. So he couldn't even understand what he did wrong. And that's not someone that goes out targeting to kill a girl because she's a woman or because she's...
He was only emotional in episode 1 because his dad was crying. He cried because his dad cried, not because of anything else, because he got caught. That was it.
The reason why I don't think it was like an act of passion, which is normally if someone's stabbed multiple times, it is an act of passion, or like it's because normally when you have those people, they do show regret. They're like, what have I done? Like, oh my fucking God. And they're like, I'm so sorry. I'm so like, blah, blah, blah. But he was just like, did it. He went out with a knife. So he had intent, whether it was to like scare her or, but it wasn't like after the fact he showed any remorse. He just carried on. And even when he was caught, he was like, even when he was getting arrested, if you looked initially, he wasn't that panicked. He was like, oh, but it wasn't the reaction of someone that knew they'd done something
He did
really
it out of
bad.
embarrassment, not passion. Kids at 13 don't have passion.
Yeah, I think it was just like
pissed
some
himself?
people.
Drew Carroll. Go
Do you
on.
think he pissed himself on purpose then to make himself look more innocent?
Probably, yeah.
No, I'm just saying because it seems quite
No, that
calculated.
could have been genuine fear because then you're cooked.
Oh,
That
okay,
could
yeah.
have been genuine fear.
Still had 20 people coming in his room with
Yeah,
guns.
the dog. Yeah, the
Yeah,
cat's
you
out the
probably
bag.
wet yourself, yeah. But
Yeah,
I just think it was the story of a psychopath. But what it showed was very clever. It showed several different things that could have led him to flip, whether it be social media, bullying, an issue with women, a bad schooling, bad parenting, bad upbringing, bad
It was
area,
all
like
of the above.
everything. It showed every single aspect. And the thing that frustrates me online is that everyone's gone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people moth to a flame, just hyper fixating on toxic masculinity. It's like, that's not what the story's about. It's an aspect, but it's not what the whole story's about. It's about all these different things, and everyone's just choosing to ignore them and just
Well, let's
blame
go
that.
let's go to a professional. Emma, what do you think the main theme would be if like maybe you agree with James that it's a bit of everything, which it probably is, but is there anything that kind of stood out as going, well, if I was talking to him, I'd be talking about this?
Yeah, I was going to say the bit that was most haunting for me was the idea that when he said he had the knife, and he's like, I could have touched any part of her, but I didn't, and it's like he's trying to prove that he's still a good person, even though he stabbed her 7 times. But it's like kind of what James was saying. He's still trying to get points. Like if it was a point system, I'm not that bad because I didn't touch her like in a sexual way. I just killed her. And you're like, yeah, but dude, it's like the thing that's really frightening is he doesn't understand the kind of ramifications of his act, or the fact that both of those things are terrible.
That's why I think he went more psychological than just...
Yeah. And he thinks one of them is better than the other. It's like, no, they're both very dark and disturbing things you've done. Not one is good because you didn't do the other. They're both horrendous, dude. Like, what are you thinking? But yeah, I thought it was really powerful. One of the things I loved was seeing her tact change. Like when she moved the chair was really interesting. How it's like it's like she's testing, she's probing his kind of like defenses or how it's going to be.
I think she had to be more assertive because he was taking the piss at that point. So she had to be like,
and it got a little bit dangerous. So when she said like sit down, and she kind of sat at an angle which it made it a bit obscure, it became very intimate. Surreal there. And it almost, for me, it felt like when a mum is sat at a table, the son is off to her left. But when she was opposite him, it felt more like an interview scenario where he was getting very angry, losing his stuff. But as soon as she became closer, almost like what a mum would do maybe at a table, like finish your cereal. It was really interesting how he didn't blow up as much, but he was still like, you're putting words in my mouth, you're trying to twist it. And it's like he didn't like the fact that the truth was coming out of him because of things that she was saying. It was almost like an exorcism, and she's bringing this demonic thing out of him, and he's like fighting it like, nah. And it'll be fascinating to see if there's key words that helps get the truth out of someone like that. That if they use what's it called, reverse psychology, where they're going down a different path because they're saying, I'm not asking you this question direct, I'm going around the houses, and then they accidentally trip up by revealing something.
She kept repeating herself about stuff he didn't want to talk about.
Yeah.
And that was the goal, to get him to react, to say something.
But also what was really clever is when she kind of used a little bit of reverse psychology and he says, why are you just asking me weird questions like that? And she says, well, because if I asked you loaded questions, you get defensive
And she gave an example so he understood.
And I thought that was really clever. She says, that's why I'm asking you kind of like surface level questions, not very deep ones. But then ironically, through all those little surface questions, it erupts such a kind of much darker and deeper element.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't think it felt like I didn't breathe or blink during that entire episode.
And I felt like I didn't breathe. Yeah.
and the ending when he left, and you thought she was strong and she was just going to go, Jesus Christ, but when she had a little bit of a little breakdown and she was
Yeah.
traumatized, that was.
I think a lot of the trauma she felt was for him. But like, what a little life just finished now. 13.
I think mainly it was the
It was mainly her, but I think she thought probably a lot for him as well.
They also talked about a very clever symbolism thing. I don't know if it was just an idea they had or if it was genuine in the script with the sandwich. So the sandwich was like this kind of like token, this gift of like, you're hungry, they probably don't feed you very well here. I don't know what the prison system's like. Here's a sandwich as like an offering. But at the very end, once the boy's bitten it, it's tainted because she was going to put it in the bin, but she can't even touch it. She leaves it.
Well, she had to get him a little token of the hot chocolate when she arrived, and then he's
that's classic good cop, bad cop. Though.
Yeah, but she said she was going to get him another one when she went out again, and she decided not to bring him one. She's like, "Fuck this kid! I'm not giving him a treat.
He doesn't deserve."
Then I'll move the chair closer.
Yeah.
We're going to be more strict. Yeah,
kind of the opposite of what James was saying. Don't reward him for having a fit. Like, no, you don't get the hot chocolate. I'm not going to give you a hot chocolate for being an idiot.
Well, Drew, should we have a little poem and then move on to the next subject? Unless anyone's got anything they want to add before we move on. Emma might have to go soon because she's got restricted time. But you just tell us if you need to.
Okay, this is based on the 3rd episode. This piece is called One Bite. It's my job to try and understand why people do what they do, who's behind the wheel of a violent act and what drives them. Past problems, family disputes, growing up in a world of bullies through one's youth. But I'm here to extract the truth, sweeten them up with a hot chocolate to tell you the truth. A sweet kid caught up behind bars as I probe for clues. A laugh, a smile, a bite of my sandwich or two. Things change when he talks about love, anger, and the things he would do. A boy who looks like he wouldn't hurt a fly explodes like a grenade in front of my eyes. A wolf in sheep's clothing, a clever disguise. A boy confused, manipulated, and fed visual lies now explains the way that poor girl dies. He reveals an ugly side. A vulnerable girl exposed in graphic photos, passed through cell phones. Red concrete, tarnished trainers, broken families. Truth pours from the cracks of this broken boy. Chocolate covers the walls and floor, screams bellow from pains I can't ignore. Marshmallow covered tabletops. Anger, admiration, and wanting to be adored. Do you like me? Echoes through the corridors. Banging windows, a sigh and a tear of relief. In this room now red raw. An innocent boy capable of so much more. Darkness that comes from a light source. An addiction in pockets waiting for its next victim. Consuming content guided by an algorithm. Innocent eyes drinking up ideas materialized into devastating acts we don't even realize.
And if you want to hear more from Drew, go to Instagram. Go to Instagram at Tales of the Nook, NOOK. Thank you, Drew. Going into the 4th episode, I think number 3. I thought number 1 was my favorite episode. Then I thought number 3 was my favorite episode. But now I think the final one, now it's sat with me a bit longer, is my favorite. A couple of technical things before we go into the theme is that when the spray paint on the van.
Why does it say nonce?
Just because it's offensive. That's all. It's got no relevance. It's just what kids call.
Best they could come up with.
But when they
murderer would have been like better, wouldn't it?
When they sprayed nonce on it, the paint he used to throw over it to cover it was deliberately water soluble, so they could spray it down and redo it multiple times. So that's another thing where people go, "How could it be one take? Because you would have covered it in paint." No, the nonce, the yellow nonce word was like permanent, and the paint thrown over was washed off in seconds.
They just had 10 vans with nonce written on the side.
No, one van that just. No, just nonsense driving everywhere. But no,
Imagine that going down the motorway.
but that's it. Filming that's going to be out there in the world. People have seen that. But I think, just say my point, and then we'll move to Emma. But the biggest takeaway, I actually, not an argument, but I got into a bit of a debate with my partner Sadie when watching this program, because during this episode, so this is the episode basically about the family. It's following Stephen Graham, his wife, and his daughter, who are all traumatized by it. And it's a lovely day. Stephen Graham wakes up and it's his birthday. His kids are making him food. It's a lovely scene. And he gets a card from his son, which is a bit heartbreaking because we're not dealing with the son anymore. We're dealing with the aftermath, how it affects the family, and how this simple act has not just affected this kid, it's devastated a community, it's devastated a family. And in this episode, Stephen Graham just wants to have a nice day with his family. He wakes up and someone spray painted nonce on the van, and everyone's pissed off basically. And they go to the shop to go and get the paint off and go and have a nice day at the cinema. But it doesn't work out because he spots the kids cycling past his house in column and nonce. So he realizes it's them. And when they're later at the store getting paint, a kid recognizes him and he thinks the kid's innocent, and it just winds him up. And then when he goes outside, the big annoying thing is that the kids that spray painted him have followed him, and they happen to be in the same place. They're in the end of the car park, and Stephen Graham blows up, goes to them, throttles a kid, throws him around, and like demolishes his bike. And I basically said, "Yeah, fucking have it. I would do the same. I would have smacked. I would have gone further. I would have hit that kid." It wasn't a child. It was a 18-year-old kid. I was just talking out my arse. I probably wouldn't, but I would love to have. And
I
obviously,
would have.
said he was like, yeah, no, you wouldn't. I'd walk away from that situation because that's silly. You wouldn't. I don't want to be involved with that. I'd be like, you kidding me? That kid's just destroyed my van, cost £1,000 a thing, and being disrespectful and a prick. I would have blown up at that guy. But yeah, Emma, how did you enjoy that last episode? Was it a satisfying conclusion for you? What did you think of the story plot?
I found it really triggering seeing how normal of an interaction it was between the mum and the dad when the dad was putting his hands all over the woman and she was saying like, no, I'm just cooking you breakfast. And for a good while, he wouldn't take no for an answer. And that was one thing, the sort of normality of sexualizing women, something like that grated on me. And then once he found out the spray paint on his car, how he just started absolutely just like ordering his wife to drop what she was doing. The daughter couldn't do what she was doing anymore because they both had to do what he wanted, and there was no ifs and no buts, and they just had to be quiet and comply with what he wanted to happen. And then when he raged and like went towards the kids in the parking lot of the shop, the mum and the daughter couldn't say anything, and they just had to be silent and support him. I just thought that, I don't know, that really triggered me of having to just be quiet, say nothing, comply, please a man. Yeah, and that was such a slight thing that wasn't even the point of the film, but in the context of the toxic masculinity of the whole series, that really stood out to me, of normal interactions that are normal in society but still hurt from a woman's perspective. Did you pick up on that at all?
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. You know what I was saying earlier about the aspects, the rough school, the rough area, episode 2, the manipulation, number 1, the
You're
psychoticness, number
frozen for
3,
me.
and the social media. I also mentioned the home life. This is why I think this episode happened, because until that episode, you thought he had a happy, dandy life. Stephen Graham's behaviour isn't normal. It's not good. It's very, very 1950s. And I think that wasn't a one-off. That boy has seen that. He's seen no, 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 and someone not complying. And that's why he's gone down that exact route.
Just one brief pause, James. Can you just check your connection?
Yeah, it says fine. It's
You're all
counting
good?
1 minute, 1 hour 8.
Cool. Checking. I like what your points are. I hate to be something to disagree with something that could be seen as horrible. I think at first you've got to. It's difficult to work it out because you don't know the relationship of that couple. It
That's
might
the
be
point, though.
normal for them to be like that. She might do the same to him jokingly, and it's his birthday. It might be that's the way they act on a birthday. So I don't see the touching as a bad thing. Oh, it's not something I would personally do though, but I don't see it as a a bad thing, but I get the point in the program that's deliberately there to make you think that, and then for him to flip. But I do also agree with him that something bad's happened. Stop what you're doing. We need to deal with this now. I can't have that on the driveway. This needs to be stop cooking. I don't give a shit. Birthday's over. I need this fixed. Jump in the car. Let's go. Let's get this sorted. He didn't need
I
to
think
make
it's a
that
massive
fun with him.
overreaction to a situation.
He needed to. Are you kidding me? If nonce was in my car, fucking, I don't care what you're saying to me. Do whatever you want. I'm getting this fixed now. I wouldn't have
Not being
forced someone to
funny.
come with me.
I'm not being
But-
funny. If my son had just been arrested for murder, I'd have other things on my mind, and I really wouldn't care less.
Yeah,
I
you
would
still
not
don't
be.
Yeah, you don't want a target in the driveway.
Yeah,
I
if you
don't-
know you're not, like someone wrote nonce on my car,
Yeah,
no
but
one's
that's
going,
even
"Oh, you're
worse.
a nonce."
Well, that's worse. If I had nonce in my car, I'd be like, oh fuck, someone might think I'm a nonce. So I got to get this sorted.
It's not. I
You
don't
know
know.
your neighbours.
I think
I-
it paints him out worse. He was so
I-
panicked.
I-
Why was he
I-
so panicked?
I think it's a weak factor, but I don't think it's a good thing to. I don't like people thinking bad of me. So if I saw that, I'd need to get it fixed straight away.
But that's really interesting that you talk about is the idea of how society sees you, because he talks about the fact
But he's
that
around his neighbours and his peers.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But it's the next door neighbours that are constantly watching, and he's like, "You didn't see anything, did you?" You know, when he's talking under his breath, he does say not very nice things about his. It's very interesting in the way that it's written, because you are seeing another side to the dad where he's being sarcastic and saying pretty not very nice things about the next door neighbours, and you could see it in different ways, like he's just pissed off and he's venting, but he doesn't have to say those kind of things. So it is quite telling. But interestingly, if it was my birthday and that stuff was on there and it's to do with my business, more to do with the fact that it's my business and I'm worried that my business is slightly tarnished, I wouldn't rally up my daughter and my wife. I'd be like, guys, if you want to stay here and have some breakfast, this is on my mind. I'm going to go off and get some paint. I think it was very interesting what Emma was saying, that he rallies them up, like he's scooping them up. Either is because he's trying to say, let's keep the day fun and come and join me on this so that we're still all together. But it comes across more, we can't have fun until this is done, which is,
Right,
again,
it's like
is a bit of a
selfish in
kind
a
of
way.
dictatorship.
Yeah.
They should be able to do what they want.
I think the beauty is it's complete. As this discussion's just gone, it's
Sorry,
completely open
James.
to interpretation.
James, can you come back on again? You don't have a red light on my end, and Emma can't see or hear you.
I don't know if there's a silence or if James is talking, because I can't hear James at all.
He's gone, I think. Yeah,
I
he's
could hear
gone.
James,
There we
but
go.
he
he's
didn't have a
back
red
now.
light. He's on
Can you
now.
see him?
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah, I
completely
can see
left
him now.
open to interpretation, because you could look at that one way, and I looked at it in two ways, actually. I looked at it when he was being all weird with his wife. Not weird with his wife, that's what people are like, but he was over the top with his wife, should we say. I was like, maybe that is how he is, and that's why his son is thinking he has a right over women, when all he hears his mum going, no, 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 but her dad's like, yes, yes, yes. And the overreaction, I think, to the thing, like I said, their kid's just been arrested, and he hadn't been processed. He's not been to court. He's not in prison because he says he's pleading guilty. So it's still recent. If I was always questioning why did they use that word? Why didn't they put like murderer or something like that? And then it made me think, why did that word trigger him? Like, is there something to that he was so panicked to get it off his van? Because if you're not one and you're around everyone you know, you're not one. Like, if I walk out my house tomorrow and I had a van, say, for example, and someone had spray painted nonce on the side, I wouldn't be like, I just be like, for fuck's sake. Like,
I don't.
and
I
I'd
don't
get on
think.
my day and spray it, cover it off later.
I don't reckon he did anything like that. I don't think that's the
No, but
context.
that's what I mean. That's the beauty of
I
it.
think
It
it
leaves
could
it
be the
open to
public.
interpretation.
It could be the public think he is, because when you see a lot of these killers, they're usually people that have been abused growing
Good
up,
point.
and that causes that. So people might think that, but at no point do I believe that
You just don't know,
dad
do you?
did anything.
That's the mad
Well,
thing
no.
about the program. It doesn't go in depth into any
No,
of the
from the-
situations. It's really
from the-
clever.
We can only go with the evidence. The evidence of the program does not present him as a bad person. He's got a short temper. He's only got male friends. He doesn't hang around women, so he's probably got not very good communication with women apart from sexualization. Doesn't make him bad. It just means that's what the kid's picking up on, the negative side of it. And he's not around as much as he wants to be because he's got a night shift.
But here's
Go on,
another way of looking at it. Again, to what Emma said, grief, right? So everyone's dealing with grief in different ways. So in this episode, he's still reeling from everything that's happened with his son. What I got from it is that everywhere he goes, he can't escape the fact that what's happened to his son, it's there subconsciously in everything. It's now tarnished his business. When he goes to the shop, somebody knows and says, "Oh, I know you." He can't escape.
Good point. Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
The elements of the son. And then I think it's fascinating that the two boys, I actually thought the two boys were the same age as him. That's what I thought was the whole point of it, that you've got more 13-year-olds. It's another reflection of the problem.
I think they're the older kids in the same school.
Yeah, he thinks they're following him. It's the idea that, again, the short fuse, like the reason why that episode is so tense is that, like you said, all he wants to do is relax and enjoy his birthday. But there's this snowball effect based on the subtext from his son and the aftermaths of that. And he can't quite settle. He can't put a lid on it. And that's why he explodes in the car park. Because when he throws, when he throws the paint over it, then the security guard starts having a go at him. He's like, "You want some?" It's like he goes proper into animalistic mode.
Stephen Graham is terrifying as a human, isn't he?
But I thought he was going to batter the security guard, and then he was going to get arrested.
Did you notice he was holding the screwdriver when he was shouting at him? So I thought, oh shit, he's going to get arrested for intent.
Yeah. But again, really clever little ambiguous kind of branch offs to different links. And then I thought he was going to batter the kid. I literally thought something really bad, and the kid was going to knock his head on a stone, and he's like, "Oh my God, I killed a kid." Like, it could have gone some really dark places, but he just threw him, and he thought differently, like, "No, I can't do that." But yeah, I thought, but also the way that it was shot, I don't know if it's just me, you know, when they get in the van and the van is following them, I thought they were going to crash. I literally thought he's not looking where he's going, and something's going to hit that car, because the way it was shot, it was like it wouldn't let you see what's going on outside of the car. And I thought something bad was going to happen.
Maybe just not making excuses for how he was with his wife, because obviously that's wrong. But maybe experiencing that paranoia and that he was trying to. Maybe that's how they are normally. But on the basis that her son's now in prison, maybe she's like, "I'm not in the mood for this." But maybe on a normal day she would be, and he's trying to make things as normal as possible, but not quite reading the room kind of thing.
But he's an older generation than us, and he doesn't have the mental capacity either for emotive. Like, even we are probably stunted from being brought up in the 80s a little bit compared to younger people, but he's from an older generation that don't speak about issues. That's why at the end they've got therapy. They're going to therapy, and she says
that's why I think the final
"You're
shot
not
would
meant to
break
tell
it down.
me."
Yeah, but that's also when he. And what I love about that is the fact that they leave him to his own devices when they say, we'll go downstairs. And you get the sense that he needs to be alone. This idea that men don't know how to deal with emotions to a degree. So we see him in that room. And like, he even says, "I'm sorry I let you down." Like, the idea that it still haunts him.
But that might be the first time he's processed the grief.
Yeah. But it's the idea that, again, with this societal thing of how he will be blamed, how it stains him. But it's the boy's, choices and his potential malicious intent, and the fact that it haunts it, or will continue to haunt the parents based on that.
And also something, the part when they're in their car and Jamie calls them and tells them that he's changed his plea, it shocked me that obviously no one knows what to respond to that, but the mum in particular, how she changes topic and asks if he's been eating well, and I'm like, how, like, there's no emotional availability from either parent or the sister. They just, something impactful has just hit them that's going to change everything, and then they say, "Oh, so what have you had for lunch?" Like, what? That's crazy. Yeah, but it was really nice at the end when they finally talk about feelings.
But frighteningly, I'd say that's realistic as well, because you have certain things like that where, like, oh, Jimmy down the road died, he was in a car crash, and someone like, "Are you eating that biscuit?" And you'd be like, "What?" It's just the way that people deal with certain things. That it felt incredibly real, with the fact that there's a detachment from things. But also, don't forget, for me, it's the red flag of now is the real proof of that. Because if the boy is still in denial or pleading not guilty, there's still an element of them being like, they're stuck in denial mode. But as soon as the boy says, I'm guilty, that's kind of like pulled the rug. Like,
But
the thing I thought was powerful about
Sorry.
that bit, though, was that for me, that's actually Jamie's arc, because he's in denial for that whole third episode. And in the final moment, even though it's just over the phone from that detachment, he says, Dad, I've been thinking about it. And it's like the idea of there's some strange remorse in a way, even though he doesn't want it to be fully out in the open. He'll discuss it with his dad.
I didn't hear remorse. I just heard matter of a fact. I'm going to do it because that's the best thing to do. But his dad and mum not reacting well, I don't think is even that bad. That's just normal. His dad shuts down because he doesn't know how to respond, and the mum tries to lighten the mood because there's nothing they can't help him. They're not near him. They can't offer him condolences or anything because they can't do anything at all. And how offended Jamie was when the mum started speaking, and she goes, "Oh, I didn't know you were on the phone." Because again, it's the male thing. He wants to speak to his dad, the head of the family, the only one that can understand what he's feeling because he's a man. Which is bullshit, but like that's the way he feels. But what did you guys think about the daughter? Because I think that's the daughter was like in a really important part, because the daughter turns out amazing.
It's all done. Yeah.
Even though isn't always the schools, the social media environment, she's affected by all of those aspects as well. But the daughter turns out amazing. Such a grown-up, so mature. She's devastated, but she's the one kind of holding the family together because she's the one that's got future potential and looks after the parents at the end.
Yeah.
Let's go to the cinema. No, let's not go to the cinema. Let's just rent a movie and get some popcorn in and get a Chinese. Let's not go out.
Yeah, that's brilliant. She reads the room incredibly well. And when there's that tension in the car, she's the one that says, should we play some music? So she's being a very good, like trying to balance the elements.
It was the mum that chose the music, but she put it on. But
but then
at the end, no, it was the mum that said put music on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to say, but then when they're joking and it's like changing subject and changing tact from the tension in the van, but then they start reminiscing on things. And then what's beautiful is that actually sparks a flashback, essentially done in a conversation about how they met. And I thought that was beautiful. And then ironically, they're talking about a bleeding nose, which I thought was fascinating that they go into blood. But like you've got the blood from a murder scene, from a brutal act that the son has done, and then you've got them talking about blood in a funny way because they're like, he had a bleeding nose, and then it was like quite interesting that they use blood in a flashback.
No, I agree, and but I do think it was really important that Stephen Graham at the end, even though he's devastating, just had a cry. He's like, no, I've changed now. Let's go to the cinema, and it's the daughter that comes in. We don't have to. Let's just get a takeaway. And Stephen Graham's just like, oh, thank God, I don't have to pretend to go out. I'm so happy you don't want to go out either, and that everyone's happy with staying in. It was like relief, and it was just a nice ending in a weird way. It was like
but they all talk about wanting to leave, right? Which I think is powerful. And they said, we can't let this ruin our lives. Because it's like, should we go somewhere? But they're like, but then someone will find out. They'll know who we are. Because when you hear a lot of when families change their names based on, because like, for example, the Bolger situation, which I know is absolutely horrendous, but the two children involved in that, I imagine their families all had to change names and then move away. And I thought it was powerful. But okay, hang on. Let's not divulge too much into that. But my point for the link to that is the fact that when these violent things happen from an adolescence, when it affects the whole family, normally they either go to another place so that nobody knows who they are, nobody knows their past. But they're talking in this particular episode saying, we'll be running forever. We might as well face this thing head on.
They're too famous. They'll get found out, then have to start from scratch.
Yeah, well, especially as the guy in the paint shop's like, you're that dude. He's like, great.
The thing is, in 1992, when the Bulger case happened, 1993, whenever it was, you could change your identity and leave and no one would know. Nowadays, your online footprint is too big. But also, I'm glad you brought that up, because that just goes to show that we can't just blame social media and toxic masculinity in that. There are sometimes just psychopaths that slip through the rug that you can't do anything about.
True. Yeah, it was just a perfect storm where something bad happened that might never have been able to be avoided. Great parents, maybe everything, multitude of things made it happen. Anyway, we'll We've taken a bit too long, but we have a final poem from Drew, and then we will wrap up.
So this piece is called A Splash of Colour. It's my birthday today. I'm 50 years old. Breakfast is being made, but it's left cold. Harsh words written across my van, so I'm told. Spray paint that even soap can't resolve. Shops. We're going to the shops, an outing with my wife and daughter. Chinese takeaway, that's what we'll order. Old school music as we reminisce on better days. My business is tarnished, if this word can't be erased. Paint. I lose myself in a labyrinth searching for paint. A staff member recognizes me, my son's act on local newspaper, spread across social media in a flurry. No paintbrush, no time. Cover the van, blue, it'll dry. Those two boys on bikes laughing at my life. Across the fence over the other side. Anger wins as violence consoles my pride. A ticking time bomb aching inside. Driving home together, a call to my van taken hands-free. My son wishing me happy birthday and that he's changed his plea. My heart breaks when I hear him say, I'm changing my statement to guilty. No takeaway. I can't be out in the real world today. Delivered a home so I can hide away. Our lives tarnished now, this house a prison where we stay. I revisit his room, unsure of what to say. Stars cover the walls, an impressive display. I'm haunted by my lack of understanding as I turn to God and pray. Could we have been better parents? Is this the price we pay? Everything's stained now. My sweet boy gone astray. A world filled with so many colours, yet mine will remain grey. A bitter end as we pretend there's no danger to miss lessons during our adolescence. When will we learn and put an end to this violence?
And I will leave on one message actually to any parents that watch this program. Do not take away toxic masculinity, schools, bullying. Don't look for an excuse of why the kid did it. Look for a reason to be a reason why they don't. Talk to your child, monitor their online activity. They're going to go on social media, monitor it, talk to them, and actually educate yourself rather than, oh, I don't know, it's technology. Learn it. You've got a phone, you've got YouTube. Take some time. Do a course on mental health. It doesn't cost anything. Like, spot things. You can't always do it, but sometimes you can. Don't rely on a school. They're there to teach them lessons in education. Your job is to teach them lessons on getting to the next day. That's all I say.
Brilliant words, James.
Beautiful.
Emma, have you got anything to say before we go? Any final thoughts?
I
You don't
think
have to.
one of my takeaways as well is the importance of having real conversations in the family and not putting up
100%.
like walls and just keeping face and pretending everything's okay. It's amazing and powerful to be vulnerable and to tell people how you're feeling, and it's beautiful to show emotion. So a big takeaway for me is the beauty of letting go of ego and being real, especially with your family, and finding safety in your vulnerability.
Beautiful.
Lovely. Anything you want to add, Drew? Your poem said a lot.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to say, one really quick thing about the amazing actor Owen Cooper, who is this raw talent, right? It reminds me of the days of Andrew Arnold, because there was a young girl called Katie Jarvis who was the lead in a film called Fish Tank that has lots of kind of echoes and elements to Adolescence. And I thought it's quite interesting that that's kind of come back with that kind of indie vibe. But yeah, raw talent, a perfect example that it just adds another level to this show. And also the fact that because he's unknown, I think it has more impact on an audience and makes it really haunting. Because imagine that was a kid from like Game of Thrones. It feels like it's a performance, but when you're watching it, it almost feels more like a documentary because we'd never seen that kid. And I think that was a smart bit of casting because it makes it go, oh, that's some kid out there, that it could be anyone's kid, not
Exactly. I think that's what's perfect. This program, it's kind of perfect, doesn't it? And it promotes conversation, and everyone's talking about it, which is why we don't normally talk about series except in the mix of an episode.
yeah.
But this was important enough.
Oh man,
We
it's
did
done.
this.
It's really done its job, man,
And
and it's getting like James said as well. It's hopefully
Yeah.
opening up those doors on conversations of look for signs, even if your child's silent or acting strange. Do the work. Like go in there and make it a safe environment for them to be able to express themselves. Again, like Emma said, transparency is key within a family. If we're all building blocks, like how can we be ourselves? If you can't be yourselves in your home, where can you be yourself? Do you know what I mean? It's like find a place where you can at least be real enough. And yeah.
Definitely. So, if you can't guess, we all highly recommend this. If you haven't seen it, go watch it and let us know your thoughts. Thank you very much, Emma, for joining us again. Always a
you.
treat. And hopefully, we'll have you back on again in sort of May time as well. So, yeah, enjoy your hotel room in Tunisia.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Don't drink the tap water.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
This has been Rage Whale. Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope you had a whale of a time.
Oh, wait! Before you go and enjoy the rest of your day, we would really appreciate if you had a spare 5 seconds, a follow and a 5-star rating. Also, don't forget to follow us on our socials on Instagram and TikTok, where we have updates, movie-related content, and funny clips from the show. Please tell all your friends. Thanks for hanging out with us till the very end. Have a great rest of your day.